Hi guys, welcome to my channel. This is Battle with Ola and my name is Mujola Olua. Thank you for stopping by my channel. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and if you have, thank you so much. Make sure you leave me likes on the videos and leave me comments in the comment section. Thank you. Today we want to talk about a very important topic that's a follow-up to the two topics that we've discussed earlier on this channel. If you've been following the series, we talked about copyright, then we talked about related rights, and today we want to talk about the doctrine of fair use. The doctrine of fair use is very important and very key to copyright. So understanding copyrights, if you're a copyright enthusiast, or if you're a copyright owner, or a copyright user, and indeed anyone should understand the doctrine of fair use. This doctrine is the only doctrine that accepts the licensing of copyrighted work, even for users who are not owners of the copyright. So essentially, this doctrine creates an exception for you to use copyrighted work without resorting to the owner for licensing or permission. And I'm going to be discussing this topic using the very interesting legal drama between Tracy Chapman and Nicki Minaj, which happened last year and has since been resolved, in explaining this doctrine. So please come along and let's discuss the doctrine of fair use. So ordinarily, you understand that copyright is the branch of law that protects works of art, science, and literary works, once they've been created. So essentially, it means that once a work of art or science or literature has been created, it is already copyrighted. So you might not necessarily need to register it before it's copyrighted. It is copyrighted once it's created. But copyright does not protect abstract ideas of the mind. So if you have an idea of lines, if you think up lines of a song, for instance, until you reduce it to writing or to an intelligible format which makes it readable and understandable by other people, it is not yet copyrighted. But once you've written it down, it becomes lyrics or a poem or a song or what have you. It becomes protected under the copyright law. Each country's regulation makes exceptions, as to what is permitted under the doctrine of fair use, as to the extent of what can be used without licensing. And most countries agree that usage of limited portions of copyrighted work is permitted if it's for news reporting, for educational purposes, or if it's quoted and the owner of the work is cited or properly referenced. And that reminds me of another video that I've done on this channel talking about plagiarism. I would like you to watch it. I'll leave a link to it in the description box, and of course I'll leave a link to a blog post on today's video as well in the description box. I'd like for you to read it in detail so that you can understand what the doctrine of fair use actually states, what it means, and what happened in the legal battle between Tracy Chapman and Nicki Minaj. So what is the doctrine of fair use? The fair use doctrine is an exception which allows limited and transformative use of copyrighted works. This means that copyrighted works can be used without permission if the usage is minimal, transformative in nature, and fair. Now, to determine what is fair, the court will consider four factors. There are four factors to be considered to determine what is fair under the doctrine of fair use. And those factors are the purpose and character of the use, the nature of the copyrighted work, amount and substantiality of the portion taken, and the effect of such use upon the potential market. So the court will consider all four, and if a work scales through the test of the four, then the usage of that copyrighted work is permitted without licensing. And this exception is made so that the purpose of protecting copyrights in the first place is not defeated. I have already said in earlier videos that the purpose of protecting copyrighted work is to encourage innovation in the society, and of course to provide a sort of remuneration for people who are exerting themselves, in developing the artistic space, the scientific space, the literary space in the society. But as well, the law will not become such binding chains such as to preclude people that can use these works for beneficial purposes to the society from using them just because they are copyrighted work, or just because the owner of the work does not want to share the usage with other people. There might be owners who do not want to share it. So in this case, the law will step in and ask those questions that, okay, what's the portion of the work that's been taken? What's the nature of the copyrighted work itself? and what's the purpose and the character of the usage for which the person taking the copyrighted work wants to use it for. And lastly, the court will consider what's the effect of this usage on the potential market. How does it affect the earning powers of the original owner of the copyright? These are things that the court will consider. Now, what happened in Tracy Chapman and Nicki Minaj? Nicki Minaj's real name is Onika Maraj. So the case is cited as Tracy Chapman versus Onika Maraj. So they are both singers, they are both artists. Tracy Chapman released a song a long while ago titled Baby Can I Hold You Now. It's an old song. And then along the line, another singer, Shelly Thunder, did a cover of the song and titled it Sorry. So when Nicki Minaj wanted to produce an album titled Queen in 2018, she decided to do an experimental version of Sorry. And she featured Nas, who is also a singer, on the album, and they did the song together. And then when they traced the original copyright, they discovered that it belonged to Tracy Chapman. So she reached out to Tracy Chapman and asked for licensing, if she could include the song in her album, and Tracy Chapman refused outright. Now, Nicki Minaj tried, she used social media, she used Twitter. If you know her, she tweets a lot. So she used Twitter and to try to prevail upon Tracy Chapman, to allow her use the song. But Tracy insisted that she did not want a song used by Nicki Minaj, the experimental version which she had made already. She did not want it on Nicki Minaj's album titled Queen. So Tracy put her foot down on that one, and Nicki Minaj continued to work on her album. Eventually, Nicki Minaj went on to release her album Queen. But a week before she released the album, the song Sorry that she had mixed and experimented with got airplayed by a DJ on the radio, and the DJ claimed that he had gotten the song from Nicki Minaj herself. Now, this is what happened. Nicki did an experimental version of Tracy Chapman's original song, although it was the cover titled Sorry done by Shelly Thunder. But she traced it to Tracy Chapman as the original owner and asked for copyright license. Tracy Chapman refused. Nicki Minaj tried to use goodwill, social media to pressure her to bowing and giving her license, but she refused. So Nicki Minaj went on to release her album Queen in 2018. But a week before releasing it, the song she had done, because she had done the song before asking for license, the song she had done got played on the radio by a DJ. And the DJ claimed that it was Nicki Minaj that gave him the song. He even left a link to the song so people could, access the link online. So Tracy Chapman got angry and dragged Nicki to court for using her song when she had clearly declined license. Tracy Chapman's main claims were that 1, Nicki created a song, a version of a song without her permission, and then 2, she distributed it to a DJ, which now constituted commercial exploitation of our work. That's what economic rights do. They basically allow the owner of the copyright to control how the work is exploited commercially so that they keep getting benefit for their work. So these were the two issues before the court to decide. In her defense, Nicki Minaj decided to hide under the doctrine of fair use and claimed that she had used a limited portion of Tracy's work, Tracy's song, and she had used it in order to expand, the frontiers of artistic development and all of that. And of course, along the lines, when the case got to court, the DJ claimed that, okay, it wasn't Minaj that gave him the song. Minaj also denied it. She insisted that she had not distributed the song. She had not given it to the DJ for airplay. And the DJ then also recanted and said it wasn't Minaj that actually gave him the song. But now the question before the court is that as Nicki Minaj infringed on Tracy Chapman's copyrights, and with the doctrine of fair use hold water for Nicki Minaj. That was the question before the court. Now, the court had to look out for all the 4 tests to determine whether the doctrine of fair use will avail Nicki Minaj. So Nicki Minaj insisted that 1 was permitted, that is, a creation of the work without license was permitted under the doctrine of fair use, and that 2 was not true. That is, she did not distribute the work for commercial purposes. That is, she did not give the work to the DJ who played it and claimed he had gotten it from her. Eventually, the DJ also denied that he had gotten it from Nicki Minaj. The first one, creating the work without license. For creating the work without license, the court had to look at the 4 tests for determining if the doctrine of fair use would hold water for someone who is being accused of copyright infringement. And the court held as to the nature and purpose of use, which is the first test. Nicki Minaj insisted that she had used the work to further artistic experimentation, and that it promotes innovation in the music industry, and it promotes arts for public good as well. So that she passed that test. That was what she contended. So the court looked at it, and she contended that the crux of copyright protection is to promote arts and public good, to encourage innovation in the society, just like I've said, and that was what she was doing when she decided to experiment with Tracy Chapman's song. Tracy Chapman, however, argued that the version that Nicki Minaj had created was beyond artistic experimentation, that she had created it for commercial purposes, and that's because she was going to include it in her album, her upcoming album, Queen, and not for transformative purposes, just like she has claimed. Don't forget that the rule is that where it's for educational or transformative purposes, limited portions of copyrighted works are allowed to be used without licensing. That's one of the fundamentals of the doctrine of fair use. So, Nicki is claiming that, it's for transformative use here, and Tracy is claiming that, it's for commercial use, and you should have taken permission. You are not allowed to exploit my work for commercial purposes without licensing. So it was up to the court to determine. So the court ruled in Nicki Minaj's favor on that test. The court ruled that, even though she had created it for eventual commercial purpose, the limits and the degree of commercial use was low, fairly low. And so the court ruled in her favor because she claimed she had not distributed it, and so she had not yet used it for commercial purpose. And when she released her album, it was not included. So the court held that she had not infringed on that test, and so the test would hold water for her. As regards the nature and the purpose of use, the court ruled in Nicki Minaj's favor. And of course, the court also ruled that, the amount of the work that she used was limited, and so it was within the precincts of fair use. The court also held that, what she had done, the version that she had done, had no effect on the commercial, on the potential market for Tracy Chapman's song. So the court ruled 3 or 4 tests in her favor. 1, the nature and purpose of use, the degree of her usage of the work was fairly low, and so had not yet been commercialized to such degree as to affect Tracy Chapman's rights regarding the work, and that it had not affected the potential market for Tracy Chapman's work, and of course that the portion that was used was relatively fair, limited and fair. The court ruled for the second test, and which is the last test, that's the nature of the copyrighted work. The court ruled in Tracy Chapman's favor. So it was a copyright protected work that required licensing, and so Tracy Chapman won that test. But of course, that it was now like 3 tests to 1 test. So essentially, at this stage of the decision making, the court had ruled in Nicki Minaj's favor, and so the case could proceed, for decision on the other aspect. If you look at this decision very well, it will look as if the court compelled Tracy to actually let go of her copyright work, because she did not want it on Nicki's album. Nicki had begged her. It appeared as if Nicki would go to any lengths to have the work on her album, and then when she couldn't have it on her album, she now stealthily decided to release the work via other means, although Nicki refused, and Nicki denied that she distributed the work or gave it to the DJ, and the DJ eventually said no, she did not give it to him. But what it would seem to be, if we look at it from Tracy Chapman's angle, is that she was compelled to actually let go of her license. Of course, the work was not included on her album, on Nicki Minaj's album, but the court ruling 3 out of 4 in Nicki Minaj's favor sounded like a win, a big win for Nicki Minaj. What does this mean for copyright owners? It just means that the rights are not absolute. It means that if someone can come under the doctrine of fair use and prove that the 4 tests are in their favor, they are not necessarily bound by the rules of copyright. And of course, the owner of the work will not have any remedy under the law if he or she were to sue them for copyright infringement. If we look at it on the bright side, it's good for innovation, for creativity in the society, so that people who want to exploit other people's works minimally, just to expand the frontiers of arts, of science, and of literature, would not be that constrained and restricted. But if we look at it from the artist or from the copyright owner's perspective, it might seem very offensive. It might seem like the law gave them something with one hand and is collecting it with the other hand. So that's what went on in the case up to that point. On the issue of having passed the song to the DJ or not, Tracy Chapman's case went to court, went to trial on that particular issue. And while Nicki insisted that she did not pass it to the DJ also recanted and said that Nicki did not pass it, rather he got it from the blogger. But instead of the case to go to full trial, Nicki Minaj's party offered Tracy Chapman $450,000 as settlement in the matter, and Tracy Chapman's party accepted it. That means that both parties settled out of court for $450,000. And the settlement was adopted as the judgment of the court in the matter. I would say that that's a win-win for both parties. One, it asserts, the protection guaranteed by the law over copyrighted works for copyright owners. And, it was a reinforcement by the court for Tracy Chapman that she did not go to the court. She did not resort to law in vain. And of course, it's like a deterrent to people like Nicki Minaj to ensure that once a party says no, no means no, and you must ensure that you abide by their own terms, so long they are protected by the law regarding the license that you seek from or of them. So that's how the case was resolved out of court. The cheaper route, the shorter route, was taken by both parties, and it became a win-win case. That's what happened in Tracy Chapman versus Onika Maraj, also known as Nicki Minaj. And that's the exemplification of the doctrine of fair use, as I'd like to discuss in this video. Look out for more content on intellectual property on this channel, and I will always see you in my very next video. Toodles!